From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Every world power that can weaponize memes is not only doing it right now, but they've been doing it for years, and their plan is to continue because you can't argue with the price tag. There are a lot of pros in the game as well. Like if you're listening now and you're like, hey, I want to, use memes to fight for some kind of change that I believe in. I'm going to create them. I'm going to spread them. May the odds be ever in your favor, etc., but you are outmatched. There are state-run organizations doing this on a 24/7 basis. They don't sleep, and they're after your mind.
Yeah, and the minds of everyone who opposes their government position. No, I'm just joking. But, I mean, it is possible, and it is true, right? And as you said, Ben, it's everybody. It's not just the enemies of your government. It is your government. Wherever you are, it doesn't matter. There's one really just good example, I think. And again, we often point to China or Russia in these situations because from our side, we have a government that's trying to prove these things, right? There are investigators trying to prove that there are armies of meme generators from the opposition. So from our standpoint, we could say, yes, there are definitely groups like China's infamous 50 Cent Party, the Internet Water Armies. These are two of the first recognized government troll groups that were out there and were active, and they are still active. But that's just to say we can't point to, I don't know, Ben, is there an actual troll army group within the U.S. government that we can point to? I wasn't able to find one that's got a name, right? Like the 50 Cent Party right. Or something cool like that the U.S. government has maybe within some data center somewhere where there's groups of people working on this.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of the Western reports are focusing on governments that are considered to be U.S. geopolitical rivals. But make no mistake, if you want to see some trolling or you want to see some effective use of memes, then I would look to the way that the U.S. military-industrial complex uses memes as a means of recruiting new soldiers. It's, and that's related, but it goes even deeper than memes in that regard because, the U.S. military also paid to have a presence in sports games, also paid to have presence in films, also paid to make video games, actually, some of which are not bad. But the idea here is, again, to bypass critical thought. And there is no one above the fray. In the world of global politics, everybody who can get down on this buffet is in all-you-can-eat beast mode.
Just while we're still here talking about governments doing this in this space, I want to recommend everybody heads over to archive.org and checks out a video there titled The Big Picture, Defense Against Enemy Propaganda. This was created by the Department of Defense, Department of the Army, and the Office of the Deputy Chief of Staff for U.S. Operations, U.S. Army. And it was, I think, created maybe in 1974, and it was put out at least it was released in this way in 1984. For others to see, not just as an inside video or an internal video.
Doesn't this kind of work both ways, though? Because, you've got examples of, Xi Jinping and the Chinese government, banning Winnie the Pooh memes because they were mocking him, or I think Putin, that he banned some memes in Russia because they were sort of they were criticizing his views on the LGBTQ plus community. It's interesting, because, they can be used as weapons against the people, but can also be used as weapons for the people. And it's kind of a weird look when governments ban memes that are criticizing them, but it also shows how powerful they can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And then you encounter what is sometimes called the Streisand effect. If you ask people on the internet to just not share a thing, then it moves to the top of the list of things people want to share. This has also occurred, with I believe it was the performer Beyonce, who asked for a unflattering photograph of her in a concert to be removed, and that just made it go viral. These operations are everywhere. They exist in numerous countries. They've evolved at a staggering pace. You don't need to rely on old school propaganda. You can target an audience, and through algorithms and machine learning, you can find an audience or a cause with astonishing precision. You can control the flow of conversation. You can redirect from one issue to focus on another. We are in a new era of whataboutism, right? And it's tough to catch it when it happens. In China, in that case in particular, these enterprises, like Matt mentioned, 50 Cent Party, Internet Water Armies, they're also tasked with operating on the domestic front. And for a long time in the U.S., there was a law that prevented the U.S. from actively propagandizing its own population. That law has quietly gone off the books. So be careful what you read. Voice of America applies to everyone now.
Thanks, Obama. Right? That was Obama administration.
It was during that administration. I believe you're correct. And with the case of China, and now, of course, with the U.S., this idea of operating on the domestic front means that these memes can be weaponized to decrease dissent, to shore up a positive image of the government, and then also to course correct conversations that run counter to the status quo. Most of the tactics of online information wars can seem kind of abstract, right? Let's be honest. It's a bunch of ones and zeros dashing around in a digital cloud, but they do have real world consequences. And we know this because the concept of information warfare went mainstream and came to widespread attention during and after the 2016 U.S. presidential election. And a lot of it was because the Russian government, through various proxies and various plausible deniability schemes, they spread false information via social media in an attempt to sow chaos and possibly sway the election toward Donald Trump, who did win the 2016 election. Their attempt was successful. The question is, the thing that historians are still going to go back and forth on for the next few decades is how much of a role Russian trolls actually played in that election. They were definitely in there. They were trying to move. They were trying to shake some stuff up. But were they the force that swung the needle? That's a question people haven't answered. We do know that Russia was involved, though, because investigators in the U.S. traced the warfare back to a St. Petersburg, Russia-based group called the Internet Research Agency. Fellow conspiracy realists, what do we immediately assume when something has a really like blank
kind of vanilla?
Perfect. Yes, yeah. Internet Research Agency. The
Also,
other IRA.
The IRA. Yeah.
No. Probably that it's nefarious in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yes, absolutely. They used false identities and targeted disinfo campaigns to stir up domestic dissent and instability in the United States. And then they boosted their signal through paid promotions, which means that social media companies who are U.S.-based entities were collaborators. Whether or not they knew that's what they were doing, that is what they were doing. And this is a point that we always have to hit because it doesn't matter how you feel about COVID-19. It doesn't, to these guys at least, it does not matter how you feel about a protest or a president. They don't care how you feel about Black Lives Matter. They were advertising to they were attempting to influence people who were already against or for a given thing. They were just trying to widen the divide between the American public. And this goes back to, Foundations of Geopolitics, which is sort of written by Russia's own Alex Jones. This is crazy. We talked about 4chan and the Donald subreddit. They were excellent examples of how to use weaponized memes. It's not a political point. Or at least it's not one applied to any one political party. Everybody's doing it. Some audiences might be more, like higher value than others, but every person is a potential target. And at this point, we have to ask, what does it all mean? I'm sorry.
Oh.
I know.
Oh, boy. Speaking of memes, I'm just rethinking what I said in this episode. I did say thanks, Obama. I said it as the meme version of that. Is that a thing, or am I?
Yeah, that's a thing. That's
silly?
a meme.
Okay.
That's a meme. Yeah.
Said it as a meme. Just hope I didn't offend people. Sorry about that. Well, the first thing that it means is that, you can no longer assume that a meme is actually what it appears to be, which is kind of sad because it does suck kind of the fun out of it. Like this was a cool hot air balloon and we're deflating it. Mm-hmm. Sad.
I just wanted something to laugh at while I'm pooping. You know what I mean? Now, why am I a pawn in this crazy new battleground? You're right. We can't assume that a meme is what it appears to be on the surface. We have a series of things, a series of questions we can ask that can help us determine what the true goal of that communication is. First, we have to ask why a meme came to our attention. Like, honestly, I would say, Noel, you kill it with memes. So if you send me and or Matt a meme, then I'm going to trust it. I'm just going to be like, that's fucking hilarious. Noel has his finger on the pulse. And that's true. I'm a fan of your meme game.
I appreciate it, and it's something that I really enjoy. It's as like a form of entertainment, but it can be like satire. The ones that I share don't typically rely on being some sort of transmitter of truth per se. They're more just like concepts, right? And I tried not to be super political in the things that I post, but I mean, I think they can be a really effective form of satire because you just get it. It clicks. But as I mentioned with the whole Groundskeeper Willie thing, there certainly are things that even like an internet algorithm could pull out and be like, oh, this is actually misinformation. I would draw the line, whereas if the misinformation doesn't really matter and in and of itself is part of the parody or part of the absurdity of it all, then who cares? But we know that these things can be insidious and the misinformation can be buried within them, and that little grain of whatever that thing that's trying to tug at you and your brain and or heartstrings with, those things can absolutely spread just by virtue of the fact that you don't put that much credence in something as simple and ultimately kind of frivolous as a meme.
Yeah, and let's look at the other side. This is what happens to people more often, I would argue. An algorithm, some kind of arcane calculation sends this meme your way. You're scrolling through your feed, and your feed is curated to bubble you. The for-profit entities that run social media, and we've said this at length before, and unfortunately it's a real conspiracy, they want to keep you engaged, and they want to keep you engaged by showing you stuff they think you will agree with. And so you'll start to feel like you are part of something bigger than yourself. You'll start to feel like a lot of people agree with you, and then you will be more likely to become a transmitter yourself. You'll get infected with an idea. And that's, the idea here, whether or not it's a good idea, doesn't matter. It's just how it spreads. So you have to ask yourself, what does this meme want from me?
What is this meme for you?
Yes. Ask not what this meme can do for you, but ask what this meme wants you to do for it. If the meme is like a call to action, that would be the most extreme end of the spectrum. It's usually a little more subtle. So you have to ask yourself what this meme is asking you to agree with. Humor is a skeleton key to human psychology. If you can get someone to laugh somehow, regardless of the situation, then you have made significant progress in getting them on your team in some way. It is crucial to make people laugh. And that's why you see so many orators, so many public speakers going for a laugh in all but the most somber of speeches. They're trying to get people to be like, yeah, he gets it. So war with Iran. Okay, yeah, right on. And the scary thing is, I would say that these online platforms are not going to help you. They're not supposed to. and they are amoral. They are neither good nor bad. They are just trying to keep you engaged and to move the money. And you're a medium through which that money moves.
Well, it's weird to think that memes can show up in your various feeds if it's actual user-generated content that is a meme like this, no matter who is generating it, even if it is for some nefarious means. But they can also show up in your feed via an advertisement, like we talked about, where you can literally be targeted by someone who's putting a meme out or an advertisement out that targets you, that isn't necessarily an advertisement for a business, but it's, again, to move the needle in some small way for a cause. It's very possible, and it happened during that 2016 election.
Absolutely, yes. And we know that largely as a result of the controversy surrounding 2016, Facebook, Twitter, and so on started to make moves to fact-check claims, but they're kind of slow with it. Their process is spotty. There are serious questions and strong evidence that, at least in Facebook's case, ethical concerns took a backseat to potential profits. What this means right now, if you are listening, is that we are in a war. It is a war that knows no boundaries. It is waged across the planet. It is waged with ephemeral weapons in a digital sphere. And these weapons have real-world, lasting consequences. And unless you happen to be part of a professional troll army right now, you're in the same boat as us, folks. We're hopelessly outnumbered. The conspiracy is real. The goal of memetic warfare is to move from the cloud directly into your mind. And the importance of this cannot be overstated. This is not hyperbole. This is not a sensationalism. This is happening, and it is happening to you. So now that we know this, we know memes can be another kind of weapon. We know they can be propaganda on steroids. Now we are armed with the most important weapon you can possess in this war, which is the power of critical thinking. And it's not a fun process, just to be honest with you. It's not something a lot of people do for fun because it's psychologically distasteful, right? To find new, diverse opinions that you may not personally agree with that burst your bubble. It burst your social media bubble. That's not cool. I thought everybody was on board with me. Vibes is a great movie. I will hear no dissent.
Oh, God.
But you have to find it, though. You have to find it because we have the responsibility. Like, if we want to say we understand a given issue, then we need to hear from more than just the people who are hype manning us. We need to hear from more than just the people who are cheering for us in the stands. We need to understand all sides of an argument. Like, for instance, if maybe you consider yourself an atheist, you have a higher responsibility to read the Bible than the people who consider themselves Christians, I would argue, because you need to know what you are disagreeing with. You need to know. And if you are, for instance, someone who has very strong, very specific spiritual beliefs, then it is also your responsibility to understand what other people's beliefs are, to understand what is the case that, an atheist or a Buddhist or a Christian or whomever is making. That is the best thing you can do, and it is cognitively difficult. We talked about it before. Human hardwire is limited. Human hardwire, in terms of the engine of the brain, it feeds off feeling agreed with. And we have visceral, emotional, gut reactions to stuff that contradicts our worldview. You have to work against the way your brain is constructed to have the best chance of withstanding weaponized memes. But that being said, we're talking about being active listeners, being active participants instead of passive listeners.
Yeah.
And send us cool memes.